behind this shooting is extensive. CBS 2's Jeff Nguyen has been digging into who that suspect was, and he's live with where he caught up with the suspect's wife. Jeff?
Yeah, we certainly did, Pat. We spoke to her about an hour ago, and we were able to meet her as she was packing up her things at this motel right here. Speaking of the suspect's past, we were able to pull LA County court records, and they show that the suspect was on probation for a gun charge at the time of the shooting.
That's my husband.
So you're Diana?
Yeah.
Yes. Diana Flores says she's the wife of the suspect in a deadly shootout. Cell phone video captured the barrage of gunfire on Tuesday during a deadly gunfight. 2 El Monte police officers were killed, along with a suspect. Police were called to this motel for a stabbing attack.
But it wasn't from yesterday, so it was a false call from yesterday. It had to be, because I didn't get stabbed yesterday. I got stabbed the day before that.
She says her husband was Justin Flores. Criminal records show in 2009 he was sentenced to 16 months for vehicle theft. He served 2 months and he was discharged from parole in November 2010. The following May, he was sentenced to 2 years for first-degree burglary. He was sentenced to 10 months and he was discharged from parole in August 2016. Arthur Kingsbury says he heard gunfire as he drove by the Siesta Inn where the gunfight happened.
I saw 2 police officers get out and try to run around their car to get cover, and they were, sliding around the ground and just trying to hide because they were getting shot at.
2 family members told us Flores and his wife would often go to motels to get away from others. Flores' stepfather said his wife got a call from her daughter-in-law after the shooting. She went to the motel where she was later questioned by investigators. One day after the shooting, the street in front of the motel reopened, the site where 2 officers were killed.
I am so deeply sorry. My deepest condolences for saving me. I'm so sorry. They didn't deserve that, or their families. They really didn't. They were trying to help me, and I told them before they went in the room, don't go in, he has a gun. And Diana Flores says that she had been staying at the motel for about a day after her husband attacked her. She says she was trying to get away from him, but he managed to track her down. We are live in El Monte. Jeff Nguyen, CBS 2 News.
And stay with us.
We do have breaking news as we join you at 3 o'clock. The 2 El Monte police officers killed in the line of duty yesterday have been identified. Corporal Michael Paredes was a 22-year veteran of the force, while Officer Joseph Santana joined the department less than a year ago. And we have live team coverage of this tragedy with Eyewitness News reporter Josh Haskell at the Memorial for the Fallen Heroes. But we do start with Eyewitness News reporter Leo Stallworth with the new details on that deadly incident. Leo?
Yeah, the new details. ABC News has learned that the suspect in the deadly shooting here at El Monte, which took place over my shoulder down the street at the motel there, you see all the police activity, was on probation for gun possession and more. This morning, the coroner removing the body of the suspect from the scene of the deadly officer-involved shooting Tuesday evening just before 5 at the Siesta Inn near Garvey and Central Avenue in El Monte. Shell casings littering the parking lot of the motel. This after officers responding to a possible stabbing at the motel confronting a man identified as the suspect, and gunfire broke out. El Monte Police Corporal Michael Paredes and Officer Joseph Santana killed exchanging a barrage of gunfire with the suspect in the parking lot. Police eventually shooting the suspect, killing him. A witness saying it was an all-out shootout the second police arrived.
As soon as they pulled up right here past the motel, instantly shots were fired. Heard about 5 shots. I moved over my car into one of the parking lot. I saw 2 police officers run around their car and, sliding on the ground, trying to get cover.
Detectives saying a woman involved in the initial possible stabbing call was the suspect's girlfriend and is being interviewed by investigators. Police saying Corporal Paredes had more than 2 decades of experience with the force, and Officer Santana had been on the job less than a year. Flowers, cards, and heartfelt words placed outside of the El Monte Police Department near a memorial honoring fallen heroes. J.D. Whitaker joining many others taking the time to pay respects to the fallen.
Remembrance for those officers who have lost their lives yesterday, and also to explain that law enforcement is a tough job.
I actually worked with one of them that passed. He was an awesome guy. It broke my heart to hear all this. I was at work when it happened, and it's sad.
Multiple law enforcement sources with knowledge of the investigation into the deadly shooting tell ABC News that investigators believe the man who shot and killed the two police officers was on probation for gun possession. He had also been arrested last year for possessing a gun and drugs. The El Monte Police Department, along with the El Monte Police Officers Association, releasing a joint statement following the tragic shooting deaths of the officers. There are no words to describe our grief and devastation by this senseless act as we learned about the passing of two of our police officers. It weighs heavy on our hearts, and we are sending our support to their families.
Life is so precious. You know, we're not promised tomorrow. But when we get up every day and just as they do to serve and lay their life down if necessary, I just feel that what has happened yesterday is just sad all the way around.
Folks, I got to tell you, this is the second story in as many days where I have covered law enforcement officers being wounded or killed in the line of duty protecting us. To the two officers who were killed here in El Monte. To those families, members of those fallen officers, our thoughts and our prayers are with you live in El Monte. Leo Starworth, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Yeah, tragic. Leo, thank you so much. The mother of Officer Joseph Santana lays the blame for her son's death on L.A. County District Attorney George Gascon. Our Phil Schuman has the story.
He meant the world to me. He was my only son. He went out of his way to do anything for anyone.
Olga Garcia speaks softly and slowly as she tries to put into words how she's dealing with the loss of her only son, 31-year-old Joseph Santana, an El Monte police officer.
He was a family man. He loved his wife, his children. He looked forward to his days off so they could spend time together to do things. He was just a wonderful father, husband, son.
Joseph grew up in El Monte, the middle of 3 children, Bianca just 1 year younger, his sister.
I wish I could just hug him and tell him I was proud of him, and I never got the chance to tell him that. To everyone else, this is just a news story, but to us, this is real life.
Painfully real, Joseph leaves behind his wife and 3 children, a 9-year-old girl and twin boys just 2. Santana was shot and killed along with Corporal Michael Paredes Tuesday while responding to reports of a stabbing at an El Monte motel. What makes this even more difficult, the news that the suspect who police later shot and killed, who served time for auto theft and burglary some 10 years ago, was on probation from his most recent gun arrest in 2020 instead of in prison. Because of DA George Gascon's policies, 35-year-old Justin Flores got probation and a deal. A district attorney spokesperson saying the sentence he received in the firearms case was consistent with case resolutions for this type of offense, given his criminal history and the nature of the offense.
Gascon's just letting all these criminals out. And they just keep doing one crime after the other. That guy should have been in jail. If he would have been out, my son and the other officer would still be here.
The outpouring of support for the fallen officers outside police headquarters in the city of some 100,000 makes Olga Garcia feel good. What would make her feel better, she says, would be if DA Gascon is recalled. In El Monte, Phil Schuman, Fox 11
You mentioned investigators are still on scene in El Monte tonight. They're trying to put together the details about exactly what happened.
Of course, and that shooting happened at Garvey and Central in El Monte, right near 2 motels.
Well, KCAL9's Jake Reiner is live with late-breaking information right now. Jake?
Good evening, Pat and Jazz. This scene is massive. We are at the corner of Central and Garvey. I'll step out of the way so you can take a look. This is what we're looking at right now. All the streets blocked off right now, and we know that the suspect or at least one of the suspects, is still on scene deceased, according to police. I want to show you some video from earlier and tell you a little bit more about what we know. So just before 5 o'clock, according to El Monte police, they were responding to the report of a stabbing. And when officers arrived, according to police, they received gunfire almost immediately, and two officers were hit and taken to the hospital, where my colleague Tom Waite is awaiting a press conference there. And the suspect, like I mentioned, died here at the scene. Now, we spoke with a witness who was here when the shooting was happening. Take a listen to what he had to say.
I heard about 5 gunshots, and I already knew they were gunshots just from the way I grew up around guns. My family works with the police department, and so when I came down this direction, I pulled off because 2 police interceptors flew by me, and immediately an additional set of gunshots, and I saw 2 police officers get out and try to run around their car to get cover, and they were, sliding around the ground and just trying to hide because they were getting shot at. I swung my car around into one of the parking structures that's right here, and as soon as I got out of my car and looked over, I already saw the suspect was on the ground, and I already knew, considering he was laying there motionless, he was deceased.
So the city of El Monte put out this statement earlier tonight. They said, in part, there are no words to describe our grief and devastation by this senseless act as we learned about the passing of 2 of our police officers. It weighs heavy on our hearts, and we are sending our support to their families. Again, the scene, the streets here blocked off at Central and Garvey. We'll keep you posted when we learn more information. Reporting live in El Monte, I'm Jake Reiner, KCAL 9.
Good morning, I'm Irene Cruz with breaking news. El Monte police have announced a major gang takedown. They were targeted after one of their members murdered 2 El Monte police officers last year. Let's go to Scott Reif live in Air 7 HD with more. Scott?
Irene, we're over the processing center set up here on Peck Road in El Monte, and as you mentioned, the gang members involved or had ties to the shooting of 2 El Monte PD officers back in June of last year. Well, early this morning, El Monte PD with the FBI and LA County Sheriff's deputies moved in and made a raid. It looks like there's at least 24 arrests here. They're processing more every moment that goes by. Exactly how many have been arrested is unclear. Irene?
All right, still a very active scene out there. Scott, thank you.
What's going on, you guys? Welcome back. Another episode of Greenlit Gang TV. I am excited to bring you guys this story today. Really quick, always want to give a big thank you to subscribers, you guys that comment, you guys that leave likes, you guys that give me the views. It means everything to me. Love talking about this stuff with you guys, man. Getting some good feedback. When I created this channel and had this idea, this is kind of what I envisioned it to be, was have a conversation about street life, gang life, the drug culture, addiction, mental illness, everything, because it all blends into one. Any of you that have been incarcerated or any kind of treatment facility like myself know that, at least my time that I did, and I did a very small amount of time, mind you, in treatment and jails and detox facilities, but I still did time, and I got to see firsthand the havoc that addiction, the havoc that gangs, the havoc that being brought up, and I was brought up in a great environment, but I just chose the path and got hooked on, for me at first it was painkillers, and that developed into a full-blown heroin habit by the time I was 21. So, but my point is, I had friends, I had family members, people that got brought up in really bad environments, and that's all they know. And I see that with a lot of these stories I cover with gang members and people that commit crimes. It's like it's all they know. Not always. Sometimes they struggle with certain things, and they make one choice that changes the course of their entire life. So anyway, thank you guys again. I love doing this stuff. I'm excited to talk to you guys about this particular story. We're going to be going to El Monte, California, talking about the deaths of 2 police officers. June 14th, 2022, 35-year-old Justin Flores in El Monte, California, is at a motel, the Siesta Inn Motel. He's a gang member with 19 criminal cases against him at the time of this incident. He belongs to the Quiet Village Street Gang, which has ties to the Mexican Mafia. You know, he's in a hotel room. His basically girlfriend, wife at the time, calls 911 to report a stabbing, saying that he had stabbed their daughter. The police respond, and we're going to be getting into this response here in a second because it's really important. It wasn't just a clear cut and dry response, and I'll tell you why in a second. So, two police officers, Corporal Michael Paredes, a 22-year-old veteran, and Joseph Santana, who had been on the force less than a year. They basically show up and they encounter gunfire right away. Okay. Show up to the motel. He was on probation at the time for possession of a firearm by a felon. Now, this is where it kind of gets interesting. Family members and law enforcement sources told the I-Team that Justin William Flores was killed during the confrontation with the officers. That happened after someone called 911 reporting a stabbing in progress. That would actually be the girlfriend that you see in the news story where she's crying. Now, again, I try to leave my opinion out of this stuff. I will say this. Listening to the girlfriend did not convince me. That kind of weird crying, that kind of weird, just very interesting. I had a hard time believing her. I'll just leave it at that. In the comments below, please tell me what you guys think. Do you believe his girlfriend? Do you believe the tears? I do not. I do not believe the emotion. A spokesperson for the El Monte Sheriff's Department, El Monte officer said 2 police officers were murdered by a coward Tuesday in a motel shootout while investigating and reporting stabbing in suburban Los Angeles. The suspect also was dying at the scene. Like I said, Joseph Santana had been on the job less than a year. It occurred around 4:45, 5 p.m. in the afternoon. The officers confront the suspect. Gunfire erupted inside the motel room. There were reports that Justin Flores fired through the door at the police officers. The gunman then fled into the parking lot where more gunfire was exchanged. In total, 3 officers opened fire during the encounter. And they weren't 100% sure. The officers that encountered the shots and the 2 officers that passed away, they weren't sure if they were shot outside or inside. It was hard to tell. But regardless, 2 lives were taken. After Justin Flores gets in the shootout and he shoots and kills 2 of the El Monte police officers, he then turns the gun on himself, shoots himself. Some of the time he'd spent in prison, like I said, he had 19 criminal cases in 16 years in total against him. Stuff for vehicle theft, burglary. I did read. I couldn't find exactly what it was, but he was a member of the Quiet Village Gang, but I would almost guarantee that addiction played a part in this. When I see charges like vehicle theft, burglary, stuff like that, in my experience, in my actual experience, getting into trouble and things like that, it's a supported addiction. Now, I was never a gang member. When I do see crimes like this, I know some of this stuff is for the furtherance of a gang, but usually gang members and gang members that I've been around and encountered, a lot of them had addiction issues. 99% of them did, or at least participated in some sort of substance use. I could count on one hand how many I met that were absolutely sober and stayed away from any kind of alcohol or drugs. So, Justin Flores, you see in some of the news stories, he gets let out, let out of a body bag. And pretty soon the families of the officers, they find out more information about what happened, okay? Officer Joseph Santana and Corporal Michael Paredes were responding to a report of a stabbing at the motel at 10327 Garvey Avenue, just off the 10 freeway. They come under immediate gunfire as they tried to make contact with the suspect inside, okay? His wife at the time, this is Justin Flores' wife, right, who was, like I said, speaking, right? She was apologizing. I'm so sorry. They didn't deserve that. They were trying to help me. I'm so deeply sorry. My condolences for saving me. Okay. Now, again, we're going to kind of go back to that 911 call because for two different reasons. We will say this part first, though. She said that she reported that her daughter had been stabbed. Well, police actually did not find any evidence supporting that, which is really interesting. And it said that him and his wife would go rent these motel rooms. And the wife talks about how he was on PCP, methamphetamine. So remember, like I said, I would guess that drugs were involved. They were. Okay, that's the whole point to this. Drugs are usually always involved. All right? And you see the havoc that these kind of instances happen. Paredes leaves behind a wife, daughter, and son. Santana leaves behind a wife, daughter, and twin boys who were reportedly born just that year. Young families. You're leaving behind wives, daughters, sons. It's horrible. Evidence of the stabbing was not found at the scene, and it's not clear if anyone else was inside the room. Like I said, he'd been sentenced to prison at least twice before Tuesday night's shootout. He was sentenced to 1 year and 4 months in 2009 for vehicle theft. He served less than 2 months on the sentence, was ultimately discharged from parole supervision on November 21st, 2010. He was convicted again of first-degree burglary in 2011. Was sentenced to 2 years in California Department of Corrections. In that case, he served about 9 months of his sentence. Discharged again from parole in August of 2016. Now, remember I said we're going to talk about the 911 call. There were some serious errors, or at least the officers' families felt like there were some serious errors regarding the dispatch, okay, and how it was handled. A California police dispatcher failed to tell 2 officers before they were fatally shot by a convicted gang member that the suspect reportedly had a gun and was under the influence of PCP and methamphetamine, according to a 911 recording. Okay. El Monte Police Department officer Joseph Santana, 31, and Corporal Michael Paredes, 42, were ambushed and killed on June 14, 2022, while responding to a report of a stabbing at a motel near Los Angeles. Another officer was wounded. The gunman, 35-year-old Justin Flores, then shot and killed himself. Officers were dispatched to the scene after Flores' wife, Maria Zepeda, called 911 to report that he had stabbed their daughter at the Siesta Inn located on the corner of Garvey Avenue and Central Avenue. She reportedly, now pay attention to this, she reportedly told the dispatchers that her husband was armed with a gun and under the influence of PCP and meth. Now, meth, a lot of you have heard of. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of PCP, but I'm going to break it down real quick. Meth, a lot of you have heard of, right? Real dirty drug. It's a serious narcotic that, if abused, it's going to cause you to stay up for multiple days at a time. Well, in my experience and people that I've talked to, meth was not my drug of choice. Okay, I have tried it. Not my favorite. People that I knew that abused it, after about day 2 to 3, things start getting weird. Okay, things start getting weird. You start hearing things, start seeing things. It gets bad. Now, when I saw that PCP was involved, to be honest with you, I wasn't shocked how this ended. PCP is a crazy drug. PCPs, I encourage any of you, go YouTube or Google people on PCP. You're going to see people butt naked running down the street, and I'm not kidding. It raises your body temperature to an extreme level. Full-on hallucination. Full-on. I've seen something where I believe they consider you clinically insane. You are clinically out of your mind if you are on this. So when I saw that, and a lot of people, they'll use PCP, like they'll dip their cigarettes in it. Okay, it's like a liquid. You can dip your cigarettes in, you can smoke it. You can smoke it on a blunt if you're smoking weed. It's very dangerous. So seeing this, it actually didn't surprise me. When I saw the PCP use, I said, well, if he did stab his daughter, that's why. That's why. There are all kinds of cases you can find online of people that have done absolutely insane things under the influence of PCP. But this is the crazy part. However, a report claimed that the information was not relayed to the officers arriving on the scene, and that they were basically ambushed by Flores. So they thought they were just going to like a DV call. They don't know they're going to a call with a guy with a gun under the influence of serious drugs. Okay. Now, This is where the divide happens, because the officers' family find this out and they go, hey, you guys let our guys, you guys let our family members, our husbands, our brothers, our sons walk into a trap. Well, Detective Amber Montenegro, lead investigator of the case, confirmed that the dispatcher did not inform them over the radio that Flores possibly had a gun and was on drugs, but that it was typed into the computer-aided dispatch system and visible to the responding officers on the computer terminals and their patrol vehicles. Okay, Montenegro said. They definitely had all the information in their boxes before they arrived, so they were able to look at the call and review it, Montenegro said during a December 2023 briefing with Santana's family. Detective Montenegro said the dispatcher shouldn't be blamed. You can't, quote, you can't put any of this all on one person, she said. Flores was on probation for a gun charge at the time of the shooting, which occurred a day after his probation officer requested that he return to court later in the month, according to court records. Officer Santana's sister, Jessica Santana, spoke at a rally in El Monte on Monday, where loved ones and family members of the officers called for department changes. Quote, I am here with the hope that those who failed my brother on that fateful day are held accountable, Santana said. Quote, my brother's life matters, and we will not let this memory fade away. The truth has potential to save the lives of officers who put themselves on the line daily, and the safety of the community as well. And this is where you're going to see the department and the family members, which is sad. And not just sad, it's messed up, man. It all comes down to money, right? It all comes down to money. I will say this in this particular case, I'm on the side with the family suing the department. You got to tell me that. She is suing the city and police department for $25 million. El Monte Police Chief Jake Fisher said he stands by the actions of the dispatchers and officers. Fisher released a statement on Monday to note that the department is actively working with the sheriff's department and the district attorney's office in completing the final steps in the investigation. Quote, we fully anticipate this finding to hold and that our DA will officially clear all involved officers and close the investigation. So there is a serious divide. There was a quote, too, where she said, and this is where I agree, right? The families of the officers basically said, you're getting a call, you're going to a DV, your adrenaline's thumping, your heart's boom, 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 pounding. Okay, you don't necessarily have time to read little notes in a box, but to play devil's advocate, right? The flip side of that is, hey, they have training, so they don't get overwhelmed with adrenaline to slow down, take necessary precautions, get all their information before they make a move. So, I don't know. I tend to side with the family, but I will say this, in a court of law or even a civil court where she's suing, I think she's going to have a hard time winning against the department, especially if something was at least typed into where the officers could read it, okay? Really quick, I'm going to give you a little background on the Quiet Village Street Gang. Don't know if it's 100% accurate, but it said it's a very small membership, possibly less than 100 members. I read something where it was like 40 members. Now, I did read this because I always talk about these cases, right? And on the police side, heads are going to roll. In the department, right? Things are going to change. Changes are going to be made to parole, probation, guidelines, right? But for the gang, too, this small gang, the Quiet Village Street Gang, they faced the wrath, too. It came out not very long after Flores did this. Here's an article. Members and associates of a gang tied to the fatal shooting of 2 El Monte police officers face federal charges alleging murder, witness intimidation, and drug trafficking among other counts, authorities announced Wednesday. Authorities served 10 search warrants Wednesday, leading to the arrest of 7 people associated with the Quiet Village Street Gang. 3 remain outstanding. Now check this out. The feds opened a case after the June 14th, 2022 deaths of Sergeant Michael Paredes and Officer Joseph Santana. The men were gunned down while responding to domestic violence called a motel in El Monte. Officials said the gang had been terrorizing the community for years and have ties to the Mexican mafia. Now, that's your standard police talk, right? They'd been terrorizing the community. They'd been tied to the Mexican mafia. They already knew all this, okay? Officials already knew this gang existed and had ties. The only reason anything got done is because they have to do something. You have a lot of outrage, okay? The families are mad. The public's mad. Why is this gang running around? Why have you guys not done anything? If Justin Flores doesn't shoot and kill these cops, this indictment does not come down. this indictment does not come down. And you got some of these quotes that are supposed to make it sound like tough on crime. Quote, a highly violent gang responsible for the murders of 2 brave police officers and others has now felt the weight of a collective law enforcement response. The gang's days of terrorizing the community stop with today's federal arrest, quote, U.S. Attorney Martin Estrada said. And you can hear in my voice kind of the sarcasm. It's because it's like, this is just your typical legal, it's all political, right? It's all political to make themselves look like they're doing it. And yeah, they really are arresting people. They really are doing this, but this doesn't impress me. You're doing this too late, right? You're doing this after the fact. And then they have the news conference where they display the evidence, right? Guns, drugs, typical stuff. You can go on Google and see all the pictures. 3 defendants face the RICO count, which is, I mean, that's the big one, right? You can get life on that. Okay, outlines the history of the, the Quiet Village Street Gang, alliances with other gangs. One of the gangs they're aligned with is the Whittier Vadio Locos and its association with the Mexican Mafia prison gang. Details the attempted murder of rival gang members, the targeting of informants that resulted in the killing of a bystander, illegal gambling operations, everything. So, on both sides, things had repercussions on both sides because of what Justin Flores did. So, RIP to all the victims in this case. Really crazy story, man. Glad I came across it for you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a great rest of your weekend. Until next time, peace.